The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Okay! Game on!
Game on!
Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat about way. We're with you. It's perfect to take off. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's good to have you along for the ride on this Friday, August 11th. Saturday, August 12th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. Hope you had a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the very smoky mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 nights a week. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are live as well at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. If you like our music, get your horns up for the guitar god himself, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us all over social media, starting on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you head over to patreon.com, for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR as well. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor because we do not take phone calls around these parts. You got to sign into one of the chat rooms to chat with me and our guest. You can do that by going on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. Now, if you head to our website, for $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. You can head to our store, pick up a t-shirt, poster, sticker. We have the Encounter Online, our paranormal news section put together by Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. Check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV also have some great video viewing as well. The Queen Mary's creation and launch was nothing if not extraordinary, and her rich story with history, elegance, and grandeur still amazes people. From the time her construction began in 1930 in Scotland, the Queen Mary was destined to stand in a class all her own. On May 27, 1936, she departed from Southampton, England, embarking on her maiden voyage. She boasted 5 dining areas and lounges, 2 cocktail bars, swimming pools, a grand ballroom, a squash court, and even a small hospital. On October 31st, 1967, the Queen Mary departed on her final cruise, arriving in Long Beach, California on December 9th, 1967. She has called Southern California her home ever since, and some of her passengers and crew never left. Nicole Strickland has spent the past 12 years intensely researching this legendary ocean liner. Nicole has conducted paranormal investigations in various hotspot locations on the ship. Devoted to the glorious ship's haunted history, Nicole has recently come out with her own website and blog devoted to the Queen Mary, spiritedqueenmary.com. So tonight, it's all about the paranormal, all about the hauntings, and a beautiful luxury liner. Nicole, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Well, we do have to say that this is 3 months in the making. Third time is the charm. Because we had you booked for June, but you looked at your schedule wrong, so then we had to cancel it. And then last month we had you booked, but I got evacuated from my house, so we had to cancel that show. But I'm so glad we were able to hook up today. I was like, damn it, is this interview ever going to happen? Well, we're making it happen right now.
I am so thrilled. I mean, it's always such a pleasure to talk about the RMS Queen Mary, a huge, huge focus on my life. So thank you again for having me.
Well, the pleasure is all ours and the audience of Spaced Out Radio. So thank you so much, because you're going the distance with us, and we're going to get into some of the finer details of what is haunting the Queen Mary. Before we get into her, let's learn a little bit about you. How did you get your start in the paranormal?
Oh my goodness! Do we have like 10 hours?
Well, we got 3. We got 3.
We got 3, right? I've always, a lot of people have asked me this, and I do feel that I was born into the field. I've always had a very innate fascination with the unknown, specifically ghosts and hauntings. So growing up in Las Vegas, Nevada, I had my share of odd experiences as a young child that I couldn't explain. And then, of course, when I moved to San Diego, those experiences continued. So I've been studying the paranormal as best as I could since my early high school days. However, it wasn't until a very, very life-changing and profound experience with the spirit of my beloved grandmother, Helen Lopinto, my mom's mother, that really catapulted me into active research of the paranormal. It's one of those experiences that I think, pretty much are considered the holy grail of any paranormal experience that you can have. So while I was attending college in my senior year, I got a call from my mother that she had passed away the previous morning. And so, of course, I was super, super devastated, as I was extremely close to my grandmother. And in fact, she had called me the day before her passing, just wanting to say hi and to, ask me if I was okay, a very grandmotherly action she took, when she was alive. And so because I was super busy with college and work, I rushed her off the phone. To this day, I've kind of held on to some guilt with that. But when my mom called me and let me know that, of her passing, I immediately flew back to San Diego, California, my hometown, attended her services, spent some time with the family, then went back to the University of Arizona, where I obtained my bachelor's degree. So for about a week or so after my grandmother's passing in my college apartment, I started experiencing odd phenomena that started with the front door and my bedroom door doorknobs rattling of their own volition. And of course, I tested them, making sure that maybe it wasn't someone downstairs, making noise and there was some vibrational cause or some, airflow causing this. And I couldn't explain it. It was something that never happened prior to her death. So, I kind of was left with a little bit of curiosity. And then after that, I was studying one night on my bed, and I felt a disembodied hand caress my face. And the hand felt so familiar, as if it came from someone I knew and loved. It was at that point that I started connecting the dots and thinking, my goodness, is my grandmother making contact with me? So needless to say, a few more nights passed, and again, one night I was studying, reading books for my classes, and I saw out of my peripheral vision this light over near where my closet was located in my bedroom. And I looked, and when I looked, I saw my grandmother there, solid, very solid, maybe slightly translucent. She was about 10 years younger. She had a smile on her face. She was adorned in her favorite house dress that she used to wear, and it was like royal blue and white. And it almost looked like she had a spotlight behind her that was shining on her back. And the experience, of course, only lasted a fraction of a second, but it was so slow for me. And I can't tell you in words what went through my soul when I had this experience, but it was something that was extremely life-changing. I was able to see her. She appeared to me for a few nights after the very first time she appeared. And so I then told my mom and explained to my mom, this is what's happening. And so my mom and I, of course, worried about her. We were thinking that maybe she, was possibly stuck and was kind of in earthbound. And so my mom and I talked, and we both, after we got off the phone, I was, of course, in Arizona. She was in San Diego, and we both openly talked to Helen and let her know that the family is okay, that we're okay, and that she's absolutely free to move on whenever she chooses. And after that, the experience has stopped. So I do believe, after, 17 years later, I do believe that it was her way of not only saying goodbye, but just making sure that the family was okay. And I almost felt like she wanted our permission to go. Of course, we granted that. And I do feel that she's of spirit. I do not think she's earthbound, and she does come to visit myself and my mom from time to time. So it was just such a profound experience, and that's really what motivated me to actually start investigating the paranormal. So since then, I've worked with a lot of different Southern California teams. I've always had a dream of developing my own team. So that came to fruition in 2009, and I developed the San Diego Paranormal Research Society, and we are going strong. We specialize in not only private resident investigations, but we've conducted research at many historical locations in Southern California and San Diego. We're a very educational team, so we offer classes for people that are interested in investigating and researching the paranormal. We also lecture at various events, and we've been doing this for about close to 7 years now. We are the official host of the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe Spirits of the Adobe tours. The Rancho Buena Vista Adobe is a legendary land rancho that was built in 1850 up in Vista, California, which is about like 30 minutes north of San Diego. So we're a very active team. We care a lot about what we do, and it's been an incredible journey. So
you've kind of based your life around something that you love. A lot of people don't get to do that. A lot of people
right.
A lot of people will say, how do you live then? Because there is no money in the paranormal.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an expensive hobby, but when there's a will, there's a way. And I've always told people that are new to the field, you don't have to have every single expensive gadget known to mankind to investigate the paranormal. In fact, even if I was a millionaire, which of course I'm not even close to that, I still wouldn't have, all these gadgets laying around. I'm a firm believer that less is more sometimes, and I'm one of these, I guess, in terms of equipment, I'm more, I use more of like the classic equipment. I call it the classic three, having a good standard audio recorder, a good video camera, and a good camera. Let's say the classic four, having a good, EMF meter, but regardless of the amount of equipment you have, the best piece out there is yourself. And I think it's so important for people to learn to, trust what their inner voice is telling them and what their inner guide is telling them on investigations. And so I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but it is expensive, yes, with the cost of equipment and traveling. But, when there's a will, there's a way, and, there's ways around it. So.
Absolutely. And with that love of the paranormal that you have, do you like the idea of telling stories, or do you like the investigation? How do you go about it? Because there are so many different ways people are doing it. I like to call it on this show, a disappointing, anarchic way of investigation. How do you go about it?
I think this is a really good question. And I think that as long as an investigator abides by respect and professionalism and reverence, I think that it's okay to be creative. And, there isn't just one way of investigating the paranormal. Of course, there are ways that have been adopted by, men and women that have come before us. But, there's so many different ways to approach it. And, some teams are strictly scientific, and that may work well for them. Some teams are strictly intuitive, and they don't really use a lot of equipment, and that may work well for them. What works best for me is combining the scientific approach with the metaphysical and the intuitive. I feel that, in my personal opinion, it gives the whole research project a more holistic and more thorough, I guess, approach than just focusing on either, the scientific or intuitive method. We're very methodical. We approach it, it's not something that we're unorganized with. We have a lot of protocols. We're very protocol driven. Like I said, we're very methodical. We adopt some of the, standard ways of, doing experiments, whether it be EVP sessions, spirit box sessions, spirit photography sessions, dowsing, divining rod sessions. So we have our certain procedures for that, but, we welcome creativity. And I think by having a knowledge of the location that you're investigating beforehand, I think that allows you to even develop other ways to be creative in your experimentation. So there's a lot of knocking, in the field, there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of criticizing people for doing things a certain way. But, here's my thing. Like I said at the beginning, I think that as long as you go in with an open mind and a healthy dose of skepticism, and as long as you go in being professional and responsible, and as long as you go in being a supporter of that historical location or that private residence, and you go in with respect and reverence, I think that, the sky's the limit, and you can adopt different ways. I mean, I don't think one investigation is or what I'm going to say is each investigation is different. So there's not always one way of doing things. So, yeah.
Do you consider, but take the Queen Mary aside, do you consider changing locations often, or do you continue to hammer the same locations on your investigations to see if you're getting anything different?
That's, again, a really good question. I think there are two locations that I, and as well as the San Diego Paranormal Research Society, specializes in, merely because we have a lot of history with that location. Obviously, the Queen Mary being one of them, and then the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe. With these two locations, because, I haven't ever conducted tours at the Queen Mary, but I've done a lot of investigations. But speaking of the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, because we've, conducted tours there, we like to continue on with our research because we feel like we've built a rapport with some of the intelligent spiritual energies there, and they do have a story to tell. And in a way, that story is never ending. So every time that we go in, we, seek out a different layer to that story. So for those reasons, for those two locations, we like to continuously to focus, our research on them. But I think with some locations, I think it's highly possible to go in and over-investigate and, go in and almost over-investigate, can even sometimes canalize some of these energies. Some locations, and there's one in San Diego that we've also done fundraising tours at, the Sarah Museum, which is at Presidio Park above Old Town San Diego. I feel, and this is just my personal opinion, that place is an example of, it's not a good idea to go in and over-investigate that place, because I think the energy wants to be left alone. So I think, I just think it's different with each location, but I do think that, with many, and this includes even private residences as well, that some places I think are left better left alone, and, over-investigating and going in and asking the same line of questioning. Not only, it's not going to really do the researcher justice. I think it can just cause more anxiety for the spiritual residents at that location.
In your opinion, how important is it to respect those spirits? And I ask that because tomorrow night, Nicole, I will be starting up my first charity ghost hunt at the local museum.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been doing that all year, but this is our first one since we were all evacuated due to the forest fires, and literally, hell, I even had the local radio stations around here giving me a call asking me for interviews on the ghost hunt, because so many events had been canceled, and all of a sudden they're seeing we're restarting, and they're like, really? We have an event going on in town? Oh my God, there's an event. There's an event, so we actually got some really good press out of this in regards to it. But we try and be very respectful to the spirits on board and who are in the museum, because after all, it's their home. It's their area. It's their space. But there's a lot of people who don't take the time to recognize that. How do you do that?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, I think to answer the first question, I think it's extremely imperative, almost mandatory, to go in and respect an energy. And I don't care if you're dealing with earthbound energies that were once, murderers in life, or extremely unhappy, terrible people in life. They're gone now. They're passed on. And regardless, I think all entities should be treated with respect and reverence. And I just think that's so important, not only to the physical, spiritual, and emotional safety of the investigators, but also, for the location as well. And if you're going in and you're trying to to research a location and you're wanting to get an idea of the spiritual story of what's going on there, I think, it's that old saying, what goes around comes around. And I think if you're going to go in there with such a terrible, antagonizing attitude, you're not going to get that back. You might get negative energy thrown back at you. But if you want to go in and you want to hear their story, they're going to be more, have more of a desire to talk to you if you're going to go in being kind and respectful. I think too, before we start an investigation, we don't just go in just like that. We kind of have our preparatory phase where we have an opening statement that we say before each investigation that kind of sets the tone and lets the energies know, why we're there and what our intent is. And we also welcome, because everyone has their own, different ways of grounding and meditation prior to an investigation. I do my own thing, which works well for me. My co-director, Ali Shriver, has her own method. So I think it's vitally important to go in not only individually, but as a team and set that good intent, set that tone. Even if you've been to that location before, and even if some of the energies there are familiar with you, like the Rancho Buena Vista, Adobe, and Queen Mary, still going in and just setting that good tone, because if you start out with a pleasant, open environment, you're going to get a lot, more bang for your buck. So that's just my opinion. And, some people, the whole provoking aspect is just something that we do not tolerate. I mean, I've even actually had to remove prior members of the team off the team because they were provoking, and it was more out of antagonizing than anything else. I mean, if you're at a location and something touches you, I think it's okay to state, I acknowledge your presence. I felt you touched me, but please, I prefer that you don't do that again. That's, I think, okay. But if you're going to go in just for the heck of it and just start, cussing and antagonizing, I keep saying that word, and treating, these energies poorly, it's terrible, and it's deplorable in my opinion. So, but it's sad, a lot of these TV shows that are on, in a way, condone this, and this is something that, we just won't tolerate at all. It doesn't do justice to anyone involved. So
I can understand that and appreciate that, and I agree with what you're doing. So when you are going through your investigation, this leads into Robin's question in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Do you do a walkthrough the day before or anything like that, or do you just show up at a location and just free will it?
We prefer, if we can, especially if the location is foreign to us and in a place that we haven't been to. Absolutely, if we can go in either the day before or the day of prior to our investigation and get and do a walkthrough, not only to scope out the rooms, for any potential safety hazards, or, good places to set up base camp, those things, but it gives us an idea of what we're dealing with in the space. And even if you're working intuitively, when you go into a space beforehand, you might start to get interesting impressions, and then you can use those impressions on the investigation. Now, for places that, such as the Queen Mary or the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, where we've been in countless times and pretty much kind of walk the space in our sleep, is it necessary then? I'm on the cusp of that, but I think if it's a location that you're not too familiar with and you've not done a lot of previous work, I think it's absolutely necessary to have some sort of walkthrough ahead of time. Now, some people, in terms of, wanting to know the historical narrative or the historical facts of a location beforehand, I know it differs with people. I prefer, for me, to know the history beforehand because it helps me in my line of questioning with EVP sessions, divining rod sessions, spirit box sessions, things like that. I know that my co-director, Ali, prefers to go in not knowing a lot because she likes to almost verify what, her impressions, if she's getting certain impressions, And then she later reads that, wow, two of her impressions matched the historical narrative. That's almost confirmation for her, and I get that. So, I think it's different for, each person, but I think, having an idea in your mind of the layout of the investigation is not only, or the place, not investigation, the layout of the location is not only important for your safety, but it's also important because it helps you just kind of get that initial feeling of what that location is all about. So, good question.
So, when you are on an investigation, you do believe in having a medium around, because I think you just mentioned that. What do you think the purpose of a medium is?
We don't, I'll backtrack a little bit. We don't necessarily have a medium go on, all of our investigations. There have been some where we've had, a psychic medium come aboard. I don't classify myself as a medium or a psychic. Perhaps I am, I just don't classify myself as that, but I do work intuitively. So in that case, I guess, because I'm intuitive in every case I go on, I bring that layer into the investigation. Some people are, like I said before, if they don't really rely on the metaphysical or intuitive approaches, they're not going to really want a medium or a shaman or any sort of intuitive on the investigation. Sometimes the team will go in and then, do the investigation, and then they review their results and they have all their findings and they've vetted out evidence and they've, analyzed their personal experiences and environmental monitoring with captured evidence and kind of get an idea of what's going on. Then they may call in a medium to come in after, not tell the medium anything, and see what that medium can confirm or not confirm. I think that in many cases that's one of the main purposes of having a medium there, not only to help confirm impressions and maybe confirm certain evidence, but to also help investigators learn a little bit more about the storied narrative of that location. However, and this may sound negative of me to say, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I think a lot of people in the field, I have a cat, so sorry, she has decided to be on the show. She's meowing in the background.
That's all right. It's not the first time that's happened.
Yeah, just so you know, it's not a phantom cat. But, I think a lot of people that say that they are mediums, I question that. I think that, the people, in my opinion, that have a need to incessantly announce that they're mediums or that they're this or that they're that, may not really have the gift that they say they do. Of course, I'm not saying that it's not okay to announce it, but I'm just saying, if you've not worked with a person and if they're the type that want to be the center of attention and they want recognition, I would be wary of having those types of people on an investigation. But we've worked with some incredible, genuine, gifted intuitives that just really have a passion for working with spiritual energy. So I think when working with an intuitive or medium, I think trust your gut. If there's red flags, put those on the shelf and maybe try that person out, but if I just say trust your gut on it. So
absolutely. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that medium should be a part of any investigative team, and people who say that they're not a reliable tool, you can say the same thing about these scientific technologies that people are using in their hands as well. Yes, right. They may be a little bit more accurate, but you can't trust them. Especially one of the big things that I have been a proponent for in the paranormal field over the last year or so is getting the word science out of paranormal. Because nobody really is conducting anything scientific. Right. And if they say they are, they're full of crap. At least that's my opinion from what I've heard and seen in this field.
Yeah, I get that. Like when I say scientific, I mean, I use that word to describe, using various pieces of equipment. But it's like you said, I mean, we haven't even proved the existence of ghosts. I'm not out to prove the existence of ghosts. I'm just out to try to study the unknown. But, it's just science hasn't yet explained and maybe probably never will. So, we really can't fully say that, we're performing a full-fledged scientific experiment. So I absolutely get what you're saying. Absolutely.
But the point that I'm getting at with that is the fact that I think a medium brings a whole different element. Now, if I have a medium around on the teams that I do, I don't like seeing them play with an EVP or a K2 meter or a camera or anything like that. No, you're the tool. You're the tool.
Right.
Do you let your mediums carry gear?
You know, the ones that we've worked with tend to not even want to use equipment. So even if we didn't want, let's say they wanted to, I would probably say, you know what, let's just use your gift, and that's your tool, like you said. But it just kind of helps us out because the ones that we've used on our investigations tend to shy away from anything equipment related. They're like anti-equipment. They don't want anything to do with it. They don't really know how to use it, so it's fine. And like you said, it just adds an extra layer to the entire investigation. So
you mentioned the cat earlier. At my museum that I will be investigating again tomorrow night, we actually have a ghost cat in there.
Nice.
Yes, we never knew about it. No, nobody knew about it until our first ghost hunt that we did back in April, our first tour that we did. We caught the cat on an EVP session.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Yes.
The Queen Mary is known to have a few little ghost kitties, and when we talk about the ship, I'll elaborate more on that, but we've captured disembodied vocalizations, EVPs, as well as apparitional sightings of a cat, too. So that's really cool.
That's amazing. Just amazing. For me, it really, brings home the idea of that debate that a lot of people have that, animal spirits don't stick around or anything like that, or animals.
Oh, yeah.
That whole
disagree.
Christian debate. I fully agree. After hearing that cat, that was good enough for me, because I know that there has never been a cat in that building since it moved to the museum. There's no animals allowed in there. So to be able to catch meowing on an EVP session is pretty incredible, and we caught it twice.
Oh, that's in the same night or separate?
Yes,
separate night?
Same
night. Oh, wow.
Same night, about 10, 20 minutes apart.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, in regards to animal spirits, I think, they say that, dogs, cats, and horses are probably more of most of the intuitive animals out there, but I believe that all animals, have intuitive ability. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think when you lack ego, I feel like ego and working intuitively are almost like oil and water, and they don't mix. So animals, they lack that ego. So I would say because that one of the reasons, and again, my personal opinion, they lack an ego, so therefore they have a lot of intuitive ability, and they're able to, not think from their ego, but think from their heart. So, yeah, that's a whole, another topic of conversation, but, yeah.
There are a lot of people out there who are trying to figure out what the proper techniques and ways should be for the paranormal. You seem to have a very good grasp on what you are doing in regards to investigation and what you are trying to solve. How difficult is it for you to take what you do, Nicole, which is, I think, just from hearing what you're saying, a very ground, novel, down-the-middle approach to the investigation? How do you... I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you look at the rest of the paranormal field? Because there are so many differing opinions on how to do things.
Yeah, I think, I think we're at a crossroads, and I think that, we have time to fix some of the issues that are going on in the realm, and a lot of these issues are really bringing down the field. Speaking of ego again, there is just way too much competition and superficiality going on in this field. And, I really do feel, and this is based on, what I've heard from other people, and I know a lot of people in the field, some that are very, well-versed, and others that haven't, been in the field too long. But I've been able to talk to many people, and I know so many people, and based on what their experiences are and what they've said, and based on my own, it just seems that there's so many, such an influx of people coming into the field for the wrong reasons. Maybe they want to be the center of attention. Maybe they're fulfilling a childhood need. Maybe they want to be, get their 15 minutes of fame and get a TV show. But I'm seeing that a lot of people are coming in for the wrong reasons. And, I see that there's very few researchers out there that are just, completely and genuinely so passionate about studying this field and studying the unknown. So I think in that regard, it's really bringing down our field, and there's so much competition and, criticizing people for their methods. And like I said at the beginning, this is not black or white. We don't have the answers as to why life, or the soul lives after death. And we don't have the answers. We have a lot of theories, and a lot of theories I do think, can help to explain, but we haven't figured out, what really constitutes life after death and why ghosts and spirits exist, and even some of the other areas in cryptozoology, ufology. I mean, we don't have, it's not definitively explained. And so for that reason, all the more should you welcome different approaches to the field, because who's to say that one approach may work better at this location and another approach may work better at this other location. So I just think that, people need to be more respectful of each other's opinions. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it's just this constant competition and bashing people is just, making a circus out of what we do, and is just, making a bad name for us in the field. And I do not, and this is, no offense to the people that are on some of these shows. I know some of these people, but, these sensationalized shows that, Allie and I have dubbed paratainment just, really don't do justice for the field. And I think we need to, I know TV is all about entertainment, but I just wish there were more educational and informative types of shows out there so that lay people can watch and get educated and get trained, because, we get so many case requests from people that, are fearful of spiritual energy. Maybe they've, watched too many shows that tend to, give off the message that all spiritual energy is negative, or, they're watching certain shows and they haven't learned, what constitutes orbs and how 99.9% of them can be explained away, things like that. So I just feel that, if we had more education out there and more information, then it would help, a lot of these people that aren't trained investigators to be educated. And so it would kind of stop the huge layer of people, sending in requests because of something they've learned on TV or something. So, I mean, I could go on and on about that, but, just some of my opinions.
How would you change it? How would you like to see everything changed?
Well, that saying, if you can help, what is that one? If you've helped one, something, I forget exactly how it goes, but, if you've helped one starfish, you've done your job, I guess. But, it can start with one person, but I think that there needs to be more cohesion. There needs to be more of a collective approach in the field, and I don't see that. There's so many teams out there working and doing their work, but it seems that it's not collective enough, and we need to join together. And, for example, people not wanting to share evidence with other people. I understand that, with certain evidence that it's a property of that historical location, and maybe that historical location doesn't want the evidence shown. And in that case, you got to respect that. But I'm using this as an example, like, why not share your experiences? Why not share your, new creative method that you developed? Why not share certain evidence? Because it's that sharing that's going to lead to more understanding and more, cohesive work. So, I mean, I'm not even sure if one person can help. I think the whole paradigm has to shift. There has to be a shift, and I don't know how we can do that. I mean, I've thought about this myself. I'm like, geez, can we wave a magic wand? I mean, I don't know. I think it just has to, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I wish I had the answer, but I guess just for those that
Okay.
are genuine and focused to keep, doing what they're doing and be a model investigator for other people.
And I'm not trying to get you to stir up the shit, so to speak, pardon my language, with everything. That's not the whole purpose of the question. I don't want it to be negative, because there are a lot of good things happening in the paranormal field.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious if you could, let's pick your mind for a second, because you talk to your friends, your fellow investigators, your colleagues, and everybody has an opinion on how to change it for the better. What would be your top 3?
Oh my goodness. I think spreading awareness is one. I think there needs to be more documentation, and I'm not just talking about, documenting evidence, but documenting, the entire experience of an investigation, or documenting, even thoughts and opinions on how to, improve the field, just various documentation. Like I said, spreading awareness, and I think, God, what would the other one be? Geez, this is hard for me to think. I mean, like I said, spreading awareness is huge. Documentation, and I don't know. I guess having more. One thing that comes to mind is having more, I guess, media. The media kind of getting more involved in paranormal research, and not just the sensationalism of it, but the education portion of it. So,
see, and I think the education is really, really important. I would go, if I were to choose my other 2, it would be, what are you trying to solve? Are you here just to, like I'm going to be doing tomorrow night at the museum, I'm going to be bringing people in to help raise money for the museum. So it's not an official investigation per se, as it is more a haunted tour, right? Right. So, but there's too many groups out there that all they want to do is play Pokemon Ghost. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's like, gosh, there's so many, not to be negative, but there's so many teams out there that really shouldn't be investigating places, because they're not either doing it properly, or they just, their whole goal isn't to, to investigate and research. It's more or less to, have fun, things like that. So, yeah, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I absolutely agree with you. I just had something on my mind, and I just completely lost it, but hopefully it'll come back. I hate when that happens.
Well, there is a big possibility that eventually there could be a set of rules that kind of guides the paranormal. It would take a lot of teams, and there are thousands of them across North America coming together to build some sort of rule book or guideline on how to do it. I don't think it's possible personally, but I don't think it's an idea that should be given up on. No,
I agree. I think that would be incredible. I mean, just as there's, laws and rules governing, jobs and other careers and things like that. I mean, I agree. I think that there should be like this universal set of, specific guidelines, and in there that entails, the respect issue and the reverence issue and things like that. So, but it's like, will it get done? How will it get done? Is everyone going to be on board, or is it going to be something that's going to be criticized? And, I just think that sometimes our mentality needs to change. And once that's changed, then we can see the results that we want.
And that's important, is to see those results. So when you're out in the field, what kind of results do you like to see?
I guess it depends. I mean, are you asking this on a specific investigation, or just as a whole, for the future of the paranormal?
No, for your own team. For your own team. Be selfish.
For us, I mean, we have our mission, we have our goals. And of course, individually, in terms of in certain investigations, obviously, if we're going in to investigate a private residence, a lot of it is helping the family's concerns and fears to be alleviated. and to educate them on, some of their experiences and how a lot of those experiences can be explained by natural phenomena versus, delving up some history about their home that they didn't know about, or educating them. Maybe someone in the house is intuitive, so you can kind of guide them with dealing with their intuitive abilities. So it varies, but for our investigations, we're not just out to get evidence. That's not just our goal. There's so much more to an investigation than that. Whether you're at a private residence, a business, or a historical location, gathering and collecting that evidence is great. Comparing those personal experiences to certain pieces of evidence, is great for helping to connect those pieces of the puzzle. But there's so much more than just going in and getting evidence. I mean, it's going in and building a rapport with, the people of our past, going in and learning about the historical narrative of a place, going in and being students of the paranormal and learning from, the spiritual encounters that we have. So I think that individually for our team and even for myself, our goals entail much more than just, using equipment and going and testing out new equipment and going and gathering EVPs and things like that. There's just so much more to be discovered. So I guess that would be, our ultimate goal is doing what we can to discover more of what's out there. So
we have about 5 minutes here before we have to go to our first break of the night. This hour is flying right by. Love talking paranormal. I told you, and besides the Queen Mary, because we're going to get heavy into the Queen Mary in the next hour. Besides the Queen Mary, explain to me some of the, maybe one or two quick stories here in regards to some of the spirits you've had to deal with that have been very interesting.
On the Queen Mary in particular, or just in general?
No, in general. We'll get into the Queen Mary spirits afterwards.
One location is the William Heath Davis House here in San Diego. It's a historical landmark, and I was actually featured on my ghost story for this. It was the episode of Gas Lamp Ghosts for anyone that's listening that has seen the episode. It was a perfect experience of having an intuitive impression, matched up with evidence. And I think when you can do that, it just, you're connecting the pieces of the puzzle, and it's pretty fantastic. So I remember walking into the house once and I got this impression of this young girl, about 10 or 11, long brown hair, brown eyes. And so I had this impression. I had not yet seen a photo of her or even know that she existed. So I went in to the foyer area, had this impression, put my bags down, and then I happened to glance at this photo on the wall at the base of the staircase, and of course it was a photo of a young girl, and that photo, what I saw in the photo, matched exactly my intuitive impression. So I asked the docent, and I said, who's this little girl? And she said, well, that's Mr. William Heath Davis's daughter, Lillian Davis. So throughout the night, a couple investigators and I made a point of trying to contact her, and we actually happened to get one of the most profound disembodied voices ever. Jerry, one of my friends and fellow investigators on that case, was like, little girl, you can come in here and talk to us. And she said, what? And he said, you can come in and talk to us. You're more than welcome to. And she said, I am trying to talk to you. My name is Lillian. So it was having that personal experience of visualizing her before I even knew of her existence, then seeing her photo and finding out that, wow, a little girl by the name of Lillian, was an actual person, and then getting a disembodied vocalization of her and introducing herself as Lillian. It was just such an incredible night of connecting the dots that, you don't get that too often. And so that's the one that comes to mind. And of course, I don't know how much time we have, but there's several at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe that we've built such a good rapport with, and it's a case where they've learned to trust us and welcome us when we go in, and they're now starting, especially in the past 2 years, to tell us more about themselves. And it's certain things, for example, ITC clips, spirit box clips, and we'll get such clear answers that are historically relevant and clear. We take what we get, and we've been able to go to a library and verify what they have been saying with historical records. So those are two examples of, very profound experiences that we've had. So,
you know what? We have one spirit at our museum that is very powerful, and people like to say to him, a couple psychics that I've had look into him say he is human form, but he's learned his powers on the other side, and he doesn't like our tour. So we had to actually cut a deal with him, or I had to cut a deal with him. Before my last tour, before the evacuation in June, I actually had to have a little chat with him. Him and I actually brought beer. He requested through one of my psychic friends that I bring beer. So I actually brought him a beer. And tomorrow night I will bring him a beer. But he said, nobody in my room. I don't want anybody in there. You guys could tour through. Do not touch anything, including the walls. Well, we had a lady on the tour lean against the wall. And I quickly pulled her against the wall. Within seconds, she was sick to her stomach. We had to get her out of the room.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we are very, very strict about who gets to, go in there, and we got to lay down the rules because old Willie there, Willie hates the tour. He understands the reason for it, but there's another lady upstairs in what we call the post house named Mary, and I think Willie has a crush on Mary, and he protects Mary, but Mary actually likes the tour and the attention. So he's kind of grinding his teeth. He's like, leave my area alone, but you can still have the tour here. So that's what we're going to do.
That's just so beautiful.
Nicole, I'm going to get you I'm going to cut you off right there. We got to go to our first break of the night. Nicole Strickland is our guest. She is the tour guide, the paranormal researcher of the Queen Mary. It's an incredible story we're going to get into next. SpiritedQueenMary.com is her website. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night and Sunday, we have Spaced Out Saturdays with Dave Cruz, and Sundays, Spaced Out Sundays with Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport. The New Look Weekend continues tomorrow night. I'm excited about it. We're getting great reviews over it. It's going to be a great time at spacedoutradio.com for you to tune in 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. at spacedoutradio.com. Once again, we want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Newnan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on the Revolution Radio Network, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. He calls this one a level 10. Oh, Bill. Let me try this again. Tetrachexahedron. Tetrachexahedron. Maybe that's it. Tetrachexahedron. Whatever it is, that is your password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Use it wisely because Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Damn you, Bill. I'm shaking my fist at you right now. So, let's move on. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Be like Goddess Michelle and Sailor Twift and use hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on iHeartRadio in the United States. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Spend some money at our Spaced Out Radio store, picking up a t-shirt, poster, stickers. You can also listen to some Bumblefoot, watch Contact TV or UFO Seekers videos, and read The Encounter online, where my blog is as well. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with author Nicole Strickland. We could say she has a crush on the Queen Mary because of all the paranormal activity on there, and you know what? I got to get down there. I want to check out this ship. I've never seen it. I have been to Disneyland, but I get so focused on Disneyland, Nicole, that I literally forget about the Queen Mary, and the Spruce Goose. I want to see those, but I'm a Disneylandaholic in Anaheim, and I know that's my bad. I mean, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Long Beach. But I thank you anyways for talking to our audience tonight about a very important subject to you, the ghosts of the Queen Mary.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Like I have such a love for the RMS Queen Mary, and so many people do. I mean, gosh, so many people have walked on that vessel and have just instantly tapped into the ship's soul. She's very much alive. She has a soul. I mean, all ships have a soul, but she's just, so mystical and just so alive with such love, strength, and peace. And it's something that, some people won't necessarily tap into that. Others, many others do, including former passengers and crew, war brides, veterans, World War II veterans that sailed on her, people of the past, people of the present. She just has this way of drawing you right in to her soul, and I think that's just something so special. I've made it my duty, and I know I'm only one person, but I've made it my duty to help spread her awareness and help share her iconic history on the high seas. So this is, I'm really honored to be on the show, so I'm talking about her, so thank you.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all, because, we love having these different types of stories come on the air. This is how we all learn. Before we get too deep into the ghosts, I would love it if you could spend a few minutes to tell us about this great liner's history.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would say the Queen Mary, and there have been so many ships, that have sailed the seas, but the Queen Mary, in my opinion, is probably one of the most iconic, most prodigious ships ever to sail the ocean. So her design concept began around 1926, and so she was actually constructed in 1934 and went through several sea trials. And at the time, I mean, she represented such sheer British engineering excellence. And, at the time, there weren't many ships that had her size nor her speed. So she represented a very brave responsibility for, British engineering. So she was built 81,237 tons. She's about 1,019.5 feet. She has about 12 decks. She was pretty much the only ship since the RMS Titanic, or the only ship at the time that resembled the RMS. I mean, there were other ships, but in my opinion, she's often compared to the RMS Titanic. And in fact, on the Queen Mary's maiden voyage, which took place on May 27th, 1936, she actually passed by the exact spot of the Titanic sinking. Didn't really throw a ceremony, but just, quietly passed by, almost as her way of commemorating the Titanic and, letting the Titanic know that, she was there thinking about her. I tend to talk about the ship and personify the ship. So that's just what I do, because I do, like I said, feel like she has such a soul and such a personality. Her launch, and Her Majesty Queen Mary was there at her launch along with her husband. So many people, thousands of people were there, and that launch took place on September 26, 1934. Again, her maiden voyage, May 27, 1936. So she was designed as an ocean liner on the North Atlantic run. So she would have both eastward and westward round-trip voyages, leaving from Southampton, stopping over in Cherbourg, and then on to New York City and back. So she did that. That's what she was designed for. Many people of all different walks of life sailed on the Queen Mary. Business moguls, actors and actresses, members of the aristocracy, students, people from all walks of life. And it's even said that, members, or her accommodations even in her third class were far superior to other liners. So she really was like a palace on the seas. And it was, at the time, such a great experience for people to be able to sail on the Queen Mary. Now, with the outbreak of World War II, she and her Cunard sister, Queen Elizabeth, were requisitioned for wartime duties, which include troop ship duties, and then later on in the war, having hospital ship duties, and of course repatriating servicemen and carrying Canadian and British British war brides to United States and Canada. So she's had a pretty lucrative career. In 1930, actually I think it was August 30th of 1939 was her last peacetime sailing prior to World War II, and she sat idled in New York City's Pier 90 for a while until she was then mandated to serve as a troop ship in World War II. Now, her and her sister, Queen Elizabeth, were needed in World War II mainly because of two reasons. One, her speed, and their speed, and two, their size. So they could carry large divisions of men to and from destinations. So she's, pretty much during World War II sailed the seven seas and went pretty much all over the place. So, it's been said that her efforts, along with the Queen Elizabeth, helped lessen the duration of World War II by about a year, and of course saved many lives. So she's gone down in history as being a pretty remarkable humanitarian vessel. So she originally started out with just, carrying about 5,000, a few thousand. Then her troop ship capacity was increased from 5,000 to 10,000. And then in July of 1943, I forget it was 1942, 1943, she went down in history as carrying the largest number of souls ever on a ship. That was 16,683, including crew and maritime officers. So, she even carried, once America entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor, she carried whole divisions of United States servicemen to and from destinations. So, in requisitioning the Queen Mary for wartime service, they had to spend a lot of time to accommodate, to make changes, structural changes even to the liner, to make accommodations for these crew. Establishing dormitories and pretty much cots and bunks were all over the liner during World War II. Men slept in the former first and third class pool. Men slept in the observation bar. Men slept in former cabins. some men had to sleep some nights on deck, other nights they slept below decks. In fact, a lot of the men prefer to sleep, on open decks because there was always this constant fear of a German torpedo or submarine U-boat attack. So, all these changes that had to be made to accommodate these servicemen. And then, of course, she was a hospital ship as well and carried injured soldiers to the United Kingdom. And then after the War Brides Act passed in 1945, her and Queen Elizabeth, as well as some other vessels like the Lady Nelson and the Mauritania, as well as a few others, also carried war brides. So a lot of these foreign women married United States soldiers, and so they were promised to have transportation to America. So, the Cunard Queens were called upon for this task, and I believe, I don't know, have the total number of war brides and children that came over on the Queen Mary from February of 1946 to September of 1946, but it's somewhere in like the around 22,000, I think, maybe even more. 30% of the war brides actually came over on the Queen Mary. So, just think about all the history and all the many people from all walks of life that have touched, upon the decks of the Queen Mary. And another interesting thing, too, is that I've always felt that the RMS Queen Mary has this protective spiritual layer around her. She's protected. I can't explain how. I don't know. I think it's something very mystical, very spiritual, but she, in her career, evaded so many near disasters, and in all actuality, she should have sunk. Even on her, I believe it was on her launch, there were problems, and she was miraculously saved. Had to do with water receding and whatnot, but she entailed so many near disasters, and she just survived every single one of them. And it's just, I think she's always, since her building, has always had this destiny of surviving and carrying on and being such a humanitarian vessel. So she all in all had 1,001 peacetime voyages. So her last voyage was about a month long, commanded by Captain John Treasure Jones, and it lasted about a month long. It was a very nostalgic voyage because many people on that voyage had sailed on her previously. And so she Long Beach won out the bid for her. There were several bids, $3.45 million, and so Long Beach became her permanent docked home in 1967. So she sailed up on December 9th, 1967, up in Long Beach, and she was escorted by, so many boats and thousands of people there. And when John Treasure Jones got the ship in Long Beach, he finally said, "Finished with engines." And, her career, even though she was docked and no longer sailing, she started a new career at that time and, became a museum and a hotel. And since then, she still is a hotel now. She still is a museum. There are so many historical, even paranormal tours on board. She has award-winning restaurants. The Art Deco, artwork on the ship is just magnificent. So there's just so many things to do there and so many reasons why to visit the ship. There's this ongoing controversy now, and I do want to address it because it's kind of all over Facebook about, the Queen Mary's going to sink and she's losing money. That's absolutely not true. Her current management company, in my opinion, is the best management company ever to oversee the ship, Evolution Hospitality. Urban Commons has come on board as well, and there are plans underway to not only renovate her and give her structural renovation and restore her back to her original glory, but there are huge plans to build the marina around her and have stores and restaurants and a boardwalk and all kinds of activities. And so the money generated from that is going to help further restore the ship in the years to come. So there's a lot of great changes going on and great opportunities for the Queen Mary now. In her, we call it her new golden era. So she's, just prevailing. And it's, I'm so lucky to be an hour and a half away from the Queen Mary now. I live in San Diego, California, and at one time there was a thought of bringing her down here, but our ports aren't big enough. But Long Beach is good to her. So, but she, the history of the ship is so storied and so detailed that, I mean, I could sit here all night and just talk about the history, but, you know, she's just, I kind of just gave a little bit of an overview, but, you know, getting into some of the hauntings, and I do want to say that, you know, I'm not just attracted to the RMS Queen Mary because she's such a magnet for spiritual energy. I mean, her history alone is, you know, I'm a huge history buff, and, you know, that's what attracts me too, but there's just something so special about the Mary. And we have the saying about, oh, there's something about Mary, right? I mean, there is. It's just something just so beautiful, and so it's, you know, it's I've had a great time these past 12, 13 going on 13 years of being able to not only study her history, but, you know, conduct numerous paranormal investigations in many areas of the liner. So, yeah, there's, you know, a lot of people think, oh, well, her history is so profound, that has to be the main foundation as to why she's so paranormally active. I do agree with that, but I think there's other elusive reasons as well that maybe we won't be able to explain. But I can get into those later. But yeah,
Nicole, I would like to ask a question about the history, if you don't mind. Do you think the reason why the Queen Mary was so resilient was because maybe of the way the Titanic went down? Because let's face it, they were calling the Titanic the unsinkable ship. And on Maiden Voyage, she goes down in the Atlantic by Newfoundland here in Canada. And and now you have the Queen Mary, who you have said, like throughout the history, that it should have sunk many a times, especially during World War II, except she wouldn't sink. And I'm wondering if you think that maybe there was some sort of luck involved with that, considering what happened to the fate of the Titanic.
I do. I think that there's luck involved, and I think that there's something, maybe this is like spiritual in a way, and something that maybe we can't necessarily explain, but it's almost like she's carrying on for the Titanic and for all other ships, you know, such as the Normandy. Even the Queen Elizabeth sank. Her sister ship sank as well, and for all these other ships that didn't prevail, I feel like she just, you know, has been a symbol for you know, carrying on and accomplishing what a lot of these ships didn't accomplish. So I think that there is something there, absolutely, for sure, absolutely. So I can't say exactly what that is, but there's something there that has helped her and has protected her along the way, so she could, you know, serve and be a humanitarian vessel. Because I mean, she was instrumental in helping to forge ties between the old world and the new, and Britain and America, and you know, really was a symbol for people, you know, getting to know each other and for freedom and peace and all that. So absolutely.
So let's get to the whole side of the hauntings on this ship, because there's a lot of ghosts on this that just never got off board. And why would they, really, considering the beauty and the majesty that she had? When did people start noticing that the ship was haunted?
You know, that's a good question. Now, I don't know exactly how true this is, but during her sailing days, I think even back early as the 1940s, people started having claims. But a lot of the as far as I know, a lot of the talk about her spiritual activity didn't really start until she was docked in Long Beach. Again, there may have been talk, you know, throughout her years that I'm just not aware of. I mean, it's hard to say, but you know, I think you mentioned, you know, like, why would people, you know, why would the energies leave the ship? Something so beautiful, and I think that's actually one of the reasons as to why she has so much spiritual energy. Is so many people, think about the millions of people that have sailed on that vessel, and all the people that, like myself, that were, you know, touched very heavily by her soul. Perhaps it's these people that, you know, they've maybe said, oh my gosh, when I go someday, I'm not going to leave the ship, I'm going to stay. So I think that that's a layer that's, you know, so many people that fell in love with the ship are there in spirit as well. The history plays a huge role. I think that, you know, all the people, there's a psychokinetic sort of force as well. All the people going in day after day, year after year, wanting to experience her ghostly energy. That provides a layer. Then you have, that she sits in water, and water is a conductor of electricity. You have the EMF theory. Tony Ashland, he's the paranormal shipwalk tour guide aboard the ship, a good friend of mine. And I talk about this in my book, Spirited Queen Mary, Her Haunted Legend. He thinks that the entire ship, Tony actually is an amateur radio operator, so he has this theory that the Queen Mary is one huge transmitter and receiver of spiritual energy based on her EMF grounding plane in the bridge and the copper wire that was used in the ship. The former first and third class pool has mother of pearl quartzite on her ceiling, the manganese bronze, the iron, her iron hull. All of these elements might play a role in attracting spiritual energy. So I think there's all these different layers of why the ship attracts so much energy. And I think, how there's, when you travel to different states, they have those welcome centers that you can stop at, get brochures, learn about the state you're traveling to or the city that you're traveling to. I almost feel that the RMS Queen Mary is like a welcome center for spiritual energy. I do highly believe, and this is my opinion, that some of the energy that comes through doesn't even have a connection to the ship at all, but just the ship for some reason is a stopping point for spiritual energy, and they pass through. Some may stay, some may leave. But I just think that there's so many layers that of her, paranormal energy, and even some elusive. There's other reasons, and I talk about this in the book, that there's other elusive reasons as to why she's so, I hate to use the word haunted, but so haunted. Yeah, I could just go on, but yeah.
Do you mind if we get to a couple of questions from Twitter for you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get to Andrew. He says, Nicole, you give the tours at the Queen Mary, and you've been there a lot. Have you ever heard any interesting stories about strange or funny things that visitors do while there?
Well, let me correct. I don't give tours on the Queen Mary. I've only done investigations aboard, but I'm not a tour guide on the Queen Mary, but I know of the tours and I've been on them. Specifying just in investigations or just in general funny things, just that tour or that visitors. Read the question one more time, just so I make sure I answer it correctly.
Are there any
not
a problem. Are there any interesting stories about strange or funny things that visitors do while aboard the ship?
Oh, this is kind of hard to answer because I'm not sure exactly. Strange things. Out of the ordinary, besides just going on and touring or staying overnight. Not that I know of. I'm not sure exactly, what his definition of strange would entail.
Well, I'm going to assume here, and Andrew, I know you're listening, if you could clarify, clarify this, because there is a little bit of a 30-second delay here. But we'll wait for let's wait for Andrew's response on that. Let's get to another question from Twitter. The massive Queen Mary 2 rolls into port every few years where he lives. Is she haunted as well?
Good. This is a good question, and this is, I know people that have sailed on the Queen Mary 2 a few times. I've never sailed on the Queen Mary 2, but I have heard stories from people that have sailed where they have had some interesting experiences. Again, I don't think that, obviously, it's nearly as storied as the Queen Mary. If there is energy going on with the Queen Mary 2, perhaps it's a rollover of spiritual energy from her, from the Queen Mary that goes on the Queen Mary 2. It's hard to say. But, there's something about ships, though, in particular, not just the Queen Mary. It seems that ships are magnets for spiritual energy, so that could be a reason, too. But, if there is a lot of, and like I said, I haven't been on the Queen Mary 2 myself. Hopefully one day I will, but I have heard a couple stories of where people thought they may have had experiences, and I'm wondering if that's, maybe the original Queen Mary's energy at times going on the Queen Mary 2, even though that they're not next to each other and, see each other on a daily basis. It's hard to say.
So in your opinion, how many spirits are currently walking the Queen Mary? Is it hundreds, or is there 5 or 10?
Oh, I would say, well, now the late Peter James, he was the home psychic aboard the Queen Mary. Of course, he passed away a few years ago. Now, he once said, in his opinion, that there are 600, I believe 600 plus energies. Now, I think it varies day to day because, like I said, I do think that the Queen Mary is like a welcome center, like a stopping over point for spiritual energy. So maybe one day she has more energy than other days. And this could even have to do with residual energy. Speaking of residual energy, there's a lot of it on the Queen Mary. She's more active around certain times of the year, around certain anniversaries. She's more, sometimes can be more active when there's more events going on the ship. But I think, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, sorry, but I think out of the spiritual energy that exists on the Queen Mary, I would say about 40% of it is residual, about 60% intelligent. But I would say, I agree with Peter James. I think, 600, plus is almost going a little bit too small. I think that there may be even more than that. There's certain, and I can get into this a little bit later, but there are very well-known energies on the Queen Mary, some who were former crew members that are also there in spirit. One of the other most, perhaps the most famous energy on board is a little girl by the name of Jackie, who is said to haunt the former first and third class pool. However, I have had experiences with her in all areas of the liner. I don't think she's earthbound, as many claim. Peter James felt that she passed away in the second class pool. I'm not so sure I believe that. We don't really know Jackie's origins, but for whatever reason, she's very active. I've often thought, could Jackie be the voice of the Queen Mary and be like the spiritual ambassador for the Queen Mary? She seems to be a very highly evolved energy, and a lot of the other spirits on board know her and know who she is. So, but it's, I don't know. I think that there's hundreds. I do agree with Peter James on that. Absolutely.
I'm still waiting for Andrew's response, but let's move on here. Take us down to the Queen Mary. Let's start on the main deck, and then we'll work our way down. How haunted is the main deck?
Now, so main deck is one of the hotel decks. So the hotel decks are M, A, and B decks. So main, and then it goes down to A, and then it goes down to B. Now, main deck during World War II housed Sir Winston Churchill and his entourage. So he met with, a lot of his cabinet members on board. He planned the D-Day invasion on board the Queen Mary. So that there's a huge, historical layer there. M deck is where her suites are. There's several different suites. I've stayed on M, A, and B. My favorite deck, of course, is M deck. I don't know why. I just like it. So, but a lot of people have had experiences in many of the cabins and staterooms, M, A, and B deck. Some people think that B deck, because it's above, a portion of it is above the former first and third class pool, they feel that, B deck is the most haunted. I'm not so sure about that, but so you start out and you have her sports decks, and then you have where the bridge and the officers' quarters are, and then you go down to sun deck and you can walk around, and I think like a quarter of a mile or 1/4 around, or I think one time around is a quarter of a mile from what I read. So sun deck, you have your starboard and your port side. So the port side, you can see the adjacent parking lot and some of the other shipyards. Starboard side, you have a very good view of Long Beach's harbor and marina, downtown Long Beach. It's beautiful, especially at night and early in the morning. Then you go down to Promenade Deck, and Promenade Deck was where the Piccadilly Circus or shopping area is. And of course, during peacetime and war times, the rooms, serve different purposes. The observation bar, or the first class bar, was forward. You have ships, of course. I don't know why I said that. You have stores. different stores. You have different former public rooms. They used to have a restaurant on Starboard on Promenade. It was called the Promenade Cafe, but it's no longer. Chelsea's Chowder House and Oyster Bar is a really good restaurant. It's down more toward the aft section. Then you have the former cabin class lounge, which is called the Queen Salon, one of the most beautiful rooms aboard the ship. The Royal Salon, you have the wedding chapel. That's all on Promenade Deck, and then you go down to M, A, and B, which serve as the hotel decks. And, of course, there's other, rooms on there as well, former, lounges and libraries and things like that. And then as you go, and some of the deck letters have changed since the ship docked in Long Beach, but the lower you go, you get toward obviously the engine room and the boiler rooms. The after engine room remains. It still has all of the machinery. I think it's one of the most interesting parts of all the ship to go in there. You can still smell the oil smells, and you can see what the machinery was like, this vintage machinery. That's all at the after engine room. There were 5 boiler rooms. So boiler room number 5 was also made of the forward engine room that was stripped out in the Long Beach conversion. They're actually renovating portions of the boiler rooms now. I guess they're putting in some music bar club, which I don't know, I'm kind of ambivalent about that. But boilers 1, 2, 3, and 4 are pretty much empty shells. So you can go in and you can see the vast, hugeness of the space. And then a part of boiler room number 5 was served as like a big, conference hall. They have, there's like conferences there. It's pretty much an open space. And then, as you go down, you get to the forward cargo holds and some of the storage areas and stuff. So I've pretty much been in all areas of the liner. I mean, there are, little nooks and crannies and certain spaces I haven't been to, but pretty much I've been from top to bottom. I've been down in the pit of the forward cargo hold where they held former Italian and German prisoners of war. And, this is as low as you pretty much can go on the ship. And these men pretty much were in there, stuffed in there, standing room only, served bread and water. Many of them died from, heat stroke and heat prostration, as when the ship sailed during very humid climates. She wasn't designed for that because she was designed for the North Atlantic run, very cool climate. So when she sailed in very hot conditions, so many men, POWs and even soldiers would pass away from heat stroke and heat prostration. So when these POWs passed away, they would unceremoniously throw their bodies overboard. So, there's a lot of sad history to the Queen Mary. Of course, the HMS Carousel Tragedy in 1942. The HMS Carousel was her World War I British light cruise escort ship, and, both captains at the time were very qualified. It was an error. It was at first determined that it was a Carousel mainly at fault for the collision, but then the Queen Mary, I think it's 1/3 Queen Mary and then 2/3 Carousel. But, it was just some little miscalculation of timing and events which led to the tragedy. So what happened is the Queen Mary, on her number 8 zigzag course, and she had to sail in that pattern during World War II because Hitler had a $250,000 bounty and award the Iron Cross with oak leaves to any submarine skipper who could sink the Mary. Of course, that never happened. So she had to sail in these zigzag ways. And so on the day of October 2nd, 1942, it was around 2 p.m., and like I said, a miscalculation of events, the Queen Mary ended up slicing in half the Carousel. The Carousel went down within 5 minutes. Over 300 men either drowned or were sucked underneath the Queen Mary and sucked toward and dismembered by her propellers. So very, very, very tragic energy. There are some residual screams of men in the forward, near the forward cargo hold area from this incident. So the Queen Mary sustained some damage, but not that much. She was able to be fixed, but I'm going on a tangent, but pretty much, like I said, I've been in many areas of the liner from top to bottom. So some of the areas now are closed off. Like they used to allow people to the forward cargo hold area, but now that's closed off, obviously, due to safety reasons. The former first and third class pool is closed off right now because she's getting renovated. It's basically sinking, so it's a huge structural engineering undertaking to renovate the pool. Some people might be asking, like, what first and third class pool? So she was designed for the cabin class, which was first class after World War II. So cabin class pre-World War II was first class. She was designed for the first class voyagers, but when air travel became more popular in the late 50s and 1960s, and since the second class already had its pool, they opened up the first class pool to third class passengers. So that's why it's called the former first and third class pool. So I'm just going on a tangent right now. I feel like I'm going in all these weird
I love it. I would like to reverse you a little bit, though, if you don't mind, because with those prisoners, you said you have investigated the area where the Italian and German prisoners of war were kept. What kind of spiritual activity are you getting down there?
Oh, well, I have an experience, and it was something that brought me to tears. So I've investigated. Patrick Wheelock of Beyond Investigation magazine formerly hosted tours aboard the Queen Mary. So I was down there with him and a group of investigators one night, and we were doing an EVP session. And so, you know, it's a very heavy, very forlorn feeling down there. It's when you go down there, you can almost feel the pain that these men went through. And so one of the questions I asked, I basically said, you know, is there anything that we can do for you? Because I know one of my goals is to help spiritual energies and offer my assistance if I can help. So I said, you know, is there anything that we can do for you? And an EVP was not heard at the time. Upon review of my audio, a couple of days later, I heard a man, deep-throated man, and the voice sounded very frail, as if he was weak, which he would have been because, I mean, he was fed water and bread, standing room only, starving pretty much. So he came through and answered the question and said, hungry, in a very frail voice. And when I got that, I immediately cried, and I just sat there and was just like, I can't believe this. And so that's some of the, you know, types of evidence that you can get down there. There's a couple of incidents that Patrick Wheelock shares in both my books, Spirited Queen Mary, Her Haunted Legend, and The Haunted Queen of the Seas. And I won't get into that now, but really interesting, almost psychokinetic type of experiences down there. There was like an odd light phenomenon that went down there, and, you know, Patrick is an engineer and super knowledgeable about, you know, electronics, and he tried many nights down there to try to explain this phenomenon, and he couldn't. Some sort of like plasma like light phenomenon going on down there. So, but it's a very, very heavy almost sad atmosphere down there. So, I mean, obviously a lot of residual emotion left over.
Have you ever had any ghosts from that prison tank, if that's what we can call it, begging to get out?
I haven't heard with my own ears, or I have not captured, you know, any EVP of those exact words. But I mean, obviously, I mean, yes, because I mean, these men, you know, during the war that were housed down there, I mean, just think about it. They had nowhere to sit, standing room only. They were starving, tired, heat stroke. I mean, of course, I'm sure that they tried to get out. I mean, I'm not even sure if we have a number, but I wouldn't be surprised if some tried to even take their own lives down there. It was just such harsh conditions. So
that's just amazing. Let's move up a couple of let's move up a couple of decks, if you don't mind. Oh, by the way, before I forget, we're getting back to Andrew. He finally responded. I think he went out.
Oh, good. I'm sorry if I am not understanding his question.
No. I think he went to Taco Bell without us, to be honest.
Oh, well, that sounds yummy right now.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Let's just keep quiet about that, because old Davy in the middle of the wilderness here does not have Taco Bell and craves Taco Bell extremely often. So let's just not get too... Shh.
Yeah, I'll be quiet, but
Thank
I'll
you.
think it though.
Yeah. I read your thoughts right now. You're bad.
Yeah.
You are bad right now. Andrew was
Yeah.
basically saying in regards to his question if visitors did anything weird or strange. He says everyone has crazy stories from their job. He worked at a library for a long time, witnessed a lot of people doing a lot of weird things. So he was just wondering, in your tours and knowledge of being around the Queen Mary, if you ever heard maybe any superstitions or anybody, trying something weird to keep the ghosts away or something along those lines.
I have not visually seen anything like that, but there have been people. I mean, also this is what comes to mind. I mean, now, thank goodness the ship has caught on to this and has closed off some of the ways to get down to the lower decks, because in the past there were several different ways to get down, so now they're more strict about that. A lot of people would go on board and sneak down in the areas and maybe, go with some teenagers would go and smoke pot down in, the pool area. There have been people that have vandalized original artwork on, in the pool and things like that. I mean, just terrible. People getting drunk on the ship. I mean, sometimes, when I stay on board, and I stay on board quite frequently, I'll walk by a few staterooms and I'm smelling weed, things like that. That comes to mind. I've not ever seen anyone do anything, super weird or strange. I would just say, the big habit with people is trying to sneak into certain areas. And restricted areas, we're talking like, the after engine room at night and the pool and the boiler rooms, and go as low deck as possible. There have been people coming on board trying to use the Ouija board in certain areas, from what I've heard, but they're starting to crack down on those people now, and they're pretty strict. And if they catch you sneaking in an area, they're going to throw you out. So, but it was really bad there for a few years, but now the new management company is really, 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 strict on safety and things like that. So it's gotten a little bit better. I hope that helps.
Not a problem. Let's go back up to the pools, because apparently there are stories of children actually drowning in these swimming pools, but they're still swimming around and having fun.
Right. Now, getting back to Patrick Wheelock, of course, his team Beyond Investigation magazine was the paranormal team of the Queen Mary for many years, so they've done a lot of research. Now, they, in their research, and they did a ton, went into archives and really, really did a lot of detailed looking into the so-called alleged deaths. Now, there is no forensic evidence at all that any child by the name of Jackie died in either the former first and third class pool or the second class pool. Now, the second class pool is no longer there. It was stripped in the Long Beach conversion, but of course the other pool remains. That's probably the center hot spot for paranormal activity on board the ship. I think that there are other areas on the ship that are equally as active, but just not as heavily traveled to. The pool is one of those locations. So there are, in addition to children, there are most likely residual, some intelligent sightings of men and women adorned in vintage bathing suits jumping in the pool and diving in the pool. I actually, in one of my very first visits to the former first and third class pool, I was actually on a tour with just a few people, and obviously the pool is drained, so there's no water in the pool right now. It's absolutely empty. And this was an EVP, so it wasn't heard at the time, but I was recording the tour, and when I went back a few days later and I reviewed my audio, you could hear the sound of someone swimming in the pool, like the splashing sounds. And I thought to myself, wow, this is odd. The pool's drained, most likely a residual phenomenon. Jackie, as well as other children, from my research, there are 3 female children that like to visit this pool area. A younger girl, maybe about 3 or 4, she's seen as shy and kind of in a nightgown holding like some sort of stuffed animal, long blonde hair. There's Jackie, who I have seen a few times. Picture Shirley Temple. She resembles Shirley Temple very much, in my opinion. She's around 6 or 7 years old, very, very talkative, loves to sing and play hide and go seek and is drawn to certain passengers. She's really likes the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and London Bridges and nursery rhyme type songs. Let's see, what is the other one? Ring Around the Rosie is another common one. And then there's another female by the name, well, a lot of people think her name is Sarah. And there's this theory that this particular energy haunts and guards the alleged portal in the women's changing room. Now, in terms of portals, I think the entire ship is a portal and a bridge from our world to the afterlife. In terms of this particular girl haunting the dressing stalls or guarding the portal, I'm not so sure about that. Some people have felt that she had a negative experience on board. I don't really get that with her energy, but that's not to say that that didn't happen. She's known as Sarah. Whether her name is Sarah, I'm not sure. There's an Italian POW that is spotted in the pool without any legs. There are men and women, like I said, adorned in vintage bathing suits, jumping in the pool, walking around the bottom and upper layers. Another huge phenomenon that happens on the Queen Mary, specifically in this area, are shadow person sightings. Now, I don't think these are the classic shadow person that, are seen either really short or really tall, adorned in a cape and a wide-brimmed hat, that are thought to be, observers of the living, maybe alien species coming through a wormhole. I'm not talking about the classic shadow person. I'm talking about humanoid shadow figures, most likely a stage of apparitional manifestation, that are seen in all gray and all black. Very, very, very common in this particular area of the ship, mainly on the upper starboard and port side hallways. And then as well as we have a couple of ghost kitties that are very commonly seen or heard in the women's changing room area. So speaking of that, I was actually on my friend's late night weekend paranormal investigation tour. His name is Matt Schultz. He's the founder of Para Explorer Project. He has been hosting the paranormal investigation tours on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights for, I think, since 2013. So I really highly recommend this, especially for people that are into paranormal investigation. He does a great job. So one of the areas is the pool. And so one night we were in the dressing stalls, and this girl said that something touched her leg. And I could see her because I was in the stall opposite from her, so I could actually see her sitting there. And then right after she said that, I saw, and I've had cats my whole life, I saw a gray outline of a cat, with the tail and the ears and the forelegs, walk from that girl's stall all the way by me and other people out the entrance door, then come back the same path, walk back into that girl's stall. But right before she walked into that girl's stall, the hugest, loudest meow, everyone heard it, and it was also caught on audio. So a really, really cool experience. But, the pool is just such a hot spot, but there's so many other areas. I think the pool gets more attention just because it's more, traveled to than some of the other areas, but a lot of different energies in there, lots. So
we have about 2.5 minutes, maybe 3, before we got to go to air or go to commercial here. Nicole, when you were investigating these areas, especially around the pools, what kind of evidence are you getting? Are you getting a lot of quality EVPs? Are you getting splashing in the background? Fill us in.
Oh, absolutely. I think, in terms of paranormal evidence aboard the Queen Mary, and I think this goes for many locations, not just the pool, I think audio, and I would say auditory and visual phenomena are the most common. So a lot of EVPs, I have some very, a lot of Class A historically relevant audio captures from many areas of the liner. Lots of photographs have been taken of interesting, photo anomalies. Now, I'm not really big on orbs or anything like that, but, shadow phenomena, apparitions in vintage clothing, former captains, things like that. So I would say audio. So I call what I call audible voice phenomena, or like a disembodied voice that's captured on tape, as well as electronic voice phenomena, as well as photographic anomalies. But then you have personal experiences too, which, there's a lot of visual sightings on board the ship. People have been touched, had their hair pulled. I've had my purse tugged. I've been tapped on the shoulder. Smell. Some people will smell cigar smoke and smoke, of course, during World War II. The soldiers would smoke on board. Winston Churchill, as well as one of the former senior second officers who died a tragic death on board, they both smoked heavy cigars. So you have pretty much all your senses, are involved in experiencing the phenomena on board the ship. So it's quite fascinating. Really, it is.
Eric is asking, we got about 90 seconds here. Do you believe all of this hauntings around the pool could do with the energy of the water in itself, even if the water isn't there right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that, as well as the mother of pearl quartzite ceiling. We know that quartz can, attract and contain spiritual energy, or spherized too. So, absolutely, it's the heart of the ship too. So I totally agree. Totally.
Excellent. I agree too. And then when you also add the fact that she's still in salt water, that just has to keep things going energetically as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's like huge. And then of course some of her elements that were used in her design, and the copper wiring and things like that, all create this. Like I said, I agree with Tony Ashland's theory about her being this huge, almost radio transmitter and receiver. I think when I heard his theory, I got goosebumps because I thought it was so profound. So, Tony, if you're listening, awesome theory.
Yes, Tony, it's an awesome theory. Let's clap for Tony on that. No, I'm just teasing. I'm not trying to snark him or be sarcastic or anything. But seriously, when you pick up on those types of energies and you're able to put two and two together, that just helps solve the mystery just a little bit more. And
doesn't it though?
As long as we are moving closer towards some sort of answer, that's all I really care about. Nicole, I'm going to get you to hold on here right now because we're going to go into our final break of the night. We are talking the ghosts of Queen Mary. If you're in one of the chat rooms or on Twitter, make sure you get your questions in because, well, that's what we do here on the Mighty SOR. We like your questions and your participation. Nicole Strickland's website. You can check it out, spiritedqueenmary.com. That's spiritedqueenmary.com. Highly suggest you check it out. We'll be back with the final hour of more paranormal talk with Nicole Strickland, author extraordinaire, right after this on the Mighty SOR. I'm your host, Dave Scott. Talk to you on the other side.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with the 4 Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Wachowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on Spaced Out Saturdays, Dave Cruz is back with a great show as he takes over Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. And then on Sundays, Cosmic Passport Spaced Out Sundays with Elizabeth Anglin. Our New Look weekend continues with weekend number 2. Everything gets going at spacedoutradio.com, once again at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tetracheshexahedron. Tetracheshexahedron is your password. I'm not saying it again, Bill. I'm not saying it again. But Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, be like Skeptic who showed up late and join us at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can follow me at Spaced Out Radio. Real simple there. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on iHeartRadio in the United States. Still waiting for Canada to join us. Jeez, Canada. I'm here in your country doing this. And I'm on in the U.S. on iHeartRadio, but not my own. Does that make sense? No. We're working on that, though. Give them a fist shake. Anyhow, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Listen to Bumblefoot, read up on the encounter online, and view some great videos by UFO seekers and Contact TV. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. For the final time tonight, we're going to talk The Haunted Queen Mary with author and, I'm going to say, Queen Mary addict, Nicole Strickland. Her website is, spiritedqueenmary.com. Nicole, welcome back. I tried to slip that in without laughing, but it got me.
Hey, it's all good. And it's true. I am. I openly admit it too, and I'm cool with that. So.
That's all right. Well, we do appreciate you taking the time to go the distance with our audience here. Joe has a question. We're going to get to the questions right off the bat here. He says, how many sailors died in World War II when the Queen Mary hit a British destroyer? And could the ghosts of any of those men still be walking the ship?
Oh, yeah. So obviously referencing the HMS Carousel disaster. So over 300 sailors died as a result. So they either drowned, they were burned as the Carousel was going down. Some of them were sucked underneath the Mary by the force of the water and then sucked straight into the Mary's propellers and dismembered. Okay, so very, very, very tragic. They're in a certain area where this occurred, near the forward cargo hold, kind of near the bow of the ship. There's an area called R Deck Forward where you go, and it had, various porters and carpenters stores and different, ship or crew storage areas and whatnot. There's the tip of that area is where the bow got damaged, I think actually a little bit below that area. So in that entire vicinity, people, including myself, have heard the disembodied screams of men. So we do think that this is a residual phenomenon from that actual incident. So I think that, like I said, that's residual. It's not intelligent. It's just kind of replays itself over and over. But I do think that some of the energies from the Carousel absolutely have come on board the Queen Mary. Have I encountered one or some of them? Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. But it's definitely something to pay attention to when you're on board. And speaking of sightings of soldiers, not just, the Carousel sailors, there are both residual and intelligent sightings and vocalizations from various servicemen on board. Many people in the hotel deck areas have heard like heavy footprints outside their room, and they've opened their stateroom door. They've gone out, and this has occurred in the wee hours of the morning. They've looked left and right. No one at all is in the hall. They've heard that. There have been other instances where people have heard noises out in the hall, and they've looked and they've seen a cluster of soldiers walking down the hallway. So, and one interesting thing to note is that the current crew members of the Queen Mary have name badges. They all have name badges with the little Queen Mary logo. Now, if you do see someone adorned in some sort of jumpsuit or, vintage crew attire, and they don't have name tags, now that's something interesting. So, but when you're on board, and if you see anyone that's in some sort of, crew clothing, make sure to look and see if they have a name tag. If they do, then it's obviously a current employee. So,
well, I was actually just going to ask you that, because in the famous Banff Springs Hotel in Alberta here, they actually have a bellhop who has still to this day been known to take luggage up to people's rooms, and when they go to tip him, he's gone.
Yeah.
Yet somehow they still got the luggage upstairs from this guy. Are we having that type of encounters on the Queen Mary?
Absolutely. And I encourage people, because a lot of people that want to go on the ship, they want to go see the lower levels of the decks and go to the engine room or the pool or the boiler rooms. You know what? Any area on the ship is fair game. You can have an experience anywhere on the ship. The hotel deck areas are hugely active. So for those that are interested in investigating or, interacting with its, spirits, and you're staying on board, I suggest, utilize your stateroom. People have had so many different, poltergeist, PK type of experiences in their staterooms. Items appear in different areas of the room. Drawers will open up. Hangers in the closet will move. Now, of course, the Queen Mary is still floating, so she does ebb and flow with the tide, but we're talking about movement of hangers in the closet, doors opening up, water faucets turning on. Like I said, items missing. People have felt someone lay down in bed with them. People have now this is an interesting little fact, and Tony Ashland shared this with me. Now in World War II, when the servicemen, they had their little duffel bag and their boots and their items, they were always told to keep their shoelaces tied, because in the event of an evacuation, you had both shoes together if you had them tied. Now what's interesting is visitors nowadays that visit the Queen Mary and stay overnight, some find that their shoelaces are tied together. And of course, they wouldn't do that. So, there's a lot of really highly energized experiences that happen in the hotel deck areas. One of my, I think, most profound experiences, and there's the front stateroom has the locks on it and then the little chain. I've even had the chain move. I've had the chain come undone, things like that. But there was this one time, and I think this was back in 2008, and I was staying in a deluxe stateroom that had the main room and then the little maid's quarters. And so my friend at the time that this happened was fast asleep in her bed. And so I, in the morning, heard the doorknob of my bathroom door twist, and the bathroom door opened up. Now, I made sure to shut that door completely at night so it was latched. And so I heard this, and then I looked up, and I saw the bottom leg, the body, I didn't see the torso, I just saw one leg, and it looked like this person had like fancy black pants on with like a dress shoe. And so I saw that, and then I kind of just laid back in bed, and I was awake. I wasn't asleep at all. I just kind of laid back because I wanted to see, what else would happen. And then I heard like rustling about in our room, and then all of a sudden I felt two hands like pressed down on me. Now I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel like I was in danger. I didn't feel like it was menacing. I just felt these two hands pressed down on me, and it almost weirdly, it felt peaceful to me. So I don't know if it was just, an energy trying to make contact or what, but it was just, this whole experience lasted just about, a few seconds, but it was just incredible. So lots of different things going on in the hotel rooms, the cabins, staterooms. The suites are known to be extremely active. Now, there's a suite named after Churchill, and so many people have walked by the room when it's obviously vacant, and they've heard disembodied conversations of men. When it's closed and dark, no one in there. Cigar smoke has been very powerful around his room. One of the housekeepers one time went in to clean the room, and she saw a short, bald man sitting in there smoking a cigar. And at the time, I don't think she knew it was, Sir Winston Churchill. But then she saw this same man get up and float back into a picture on the wall, and that picture was of Sir Winston Churchill. So he's been seen like all over the liner.
Really?
He's been seen on Sun Deck. He's been seen, looking out toward the Long Beach Harbor, smoking his cigar. He's been seen near the shopping area, Piccadilly Circus area, on Promenade Deck. He's been seen all over. It's just, I think with Sir Winston Churchill, now I could be completely wrong, I think he appears in both residual and intelligent form.
That is interesting.
That's my opinion.
Was he a frequent passenger on this ship?
He actually traveled on board the Queen Mary 3 times during World War II, one time to the Quebec conference as well. So, he has a huge history with the Queen Mary. Him and the United States president at the time were really instrumental in increasing the troop capacity of the ship. So from 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000 plus. So he even planned the D-Day invasion while on board. He held numerous meetings with his cabinet members. The entire M deck was reserved for him and his family and entourage. And so they had many meetings and many plannings on how to deal with the war efforts. So he has quite a history with the ship. So
any other
pictures
famous
of them all over too.
Any other famous people walking around?
A lot of actors and actresses, like I said earlier, and members of the aristocracy have been on board. I have heard of a couple of sightings of actors and actresses. I can't think of who they are right now off the top of my head, but people have seen. It's on the tip of my tongue. She was a famous actress. I'll think of it when the show is over. But let's see. Members, there are 2 very popular energies on board that were documented crew members. One of them is William Eric Stark, and he was a senior second officer on board the Queen Mary. He passed away in 1949. He was sick one night and decided I believe he was sick with a cold, and he actually drank tetrachloride and mistaking it for gin, got really sick, stayed in the ship's hospital, and then died a few days later. I believe they escorted him off into a hospital, and he later died. He's been spotted on board pretty much all over. I've had encounters with him. He comes across as territorial, still doing his duties. He likes smoking cigars. He's not mean by any means, but he's kind of more on the gruff side. Let's see. The first cabin, I can't talk, hello. The first captain, Britain, I think Commodore Britain, was in his captain's quarters and ended up falling to the floor, having a stroke. He didn't die on board, but was taken to a nursing home and later died. His apparition's been spotted. Captain John Treasure Jones has been spotted, as well as other captains. The other crew member that I'll mention, and I'm only going to mention his name by initials just out of respect for the family, JP. He was an 18-year-old crewman from Yorkshire, and he joined the Queen Mary in March of 1966. And so July 10th of 1966, he was found wedged in watertight door number 13 in the starboard shaft alley area of the after engine room. So there's, if you look online, you're going to read that, he was playing a game of chicken with other crew members and, they were goofing around and he couldn't get out of the door in time. We don't know if that happened. I don't think it did because the ship at the time was in fog. These crew members were highly trained to not mess around. And another thing is that he wasn't originally assigned to the aft engine room. He was assigned to boiler room number 3 as a fireman and bilge cleaner. So on this particular voyage, he was in the after engine room, so perhaps he wasn't as familiar with the route. And a lot of the guides on the tours say that the watertight doors took 6 seconds to close, when in actuality they took 45 seconds to close. So what we think and what I think is that he somehow slipped and fell, maybe grabbed one of his tools because crew members these engine room workers had their own tools, got up and couldn't, or stood up and couldn't get out in time. And again, I was on Tony's tour a couple months ago, and actually a former engine room worker was on Tony's tour who was also on board at the time that JP passed away, and he thinks that in order to operate these watertight doors on either side there were these levers, and perhaps he was trying to manipulate one of the levers, couldn't get it to work in time, and obviously got stuck on watertight doors. So in 13 he was found not laying down, he was found wedged upright. So of course, not trying to be gory or anything, but he was bleeding from the mouth and nose, and was found about 3:55 a.m. on July 10th. The nurse and the doctor administered morphine. He later passed away, and his remains were then sent to his mother. Very popular energy. A lot of us who are familiar with his energy feel that he's there by choice. We don't think he's stuck. He seems to be very engaging with people. I have actually seen him before. There is a historical photograph of him with his ship identification number. So very young, handsome man who just, died such a tragic death. So, and he's been spotted in not just the aft engine room, but in other areas of the vessel as well. So, those are some of the more common spirits that are there.
Do you find a lot of these spirits that are there, because the ship was a luxury liner, they were there for entertainment purposes, actually enjoy the haunted tours that are going around? I've pondered this, and I think that some of them do. I mean, I would say JP is one of them, because he's kind of like I would say in life he was probably very funny and kind of like a jokester. He seems to really like the interaction, as does Jackie. Maybe some of the energies on board that maybe sadly died, because crew members and passengers did die of illness and injury. Maybe for them, if they're stuck there, I would hate to think that maybe they're not so happy. But I do think that, a lot of the energies do like seeing people come on board and do like interacting, and that could be one of the reasons why they choose to stay there. It's hard to say, but that's something that I've pondered a lot, actually. Well, I'm glad we got that question out then, because I know on my tour that I do, and it's definitely not the size of the Queen Mary or have that much spirit activity, but from what we have felt and what we have talked to with mediums and everything, besides Willie in the post house, all of them really enjoy the tour. They really enjoy the interaction with people coming into the buildings and being a part of it specifically for them. And I was just wondering if it was along the same lines.
Yeah, I think for many of them, they do. I'm familiar with a lot of the tours. Again, I'm not a tour guide on board the Queen Mary. I would love to be one someday, but I'm familiar with the tours and many of the people that conduct them. So, they have like the historical World War II tour. Some of them are self-guided audio tours, but out of the paranormal ones, the ones that I recommend are the Haunted Encounters, the Paranormal Ship Walk, and of course the Paranormal Investigation Tour. Oh, they also have Dining with the Spirits. Tony does that one as well, where you eat at Sir Winston's restaurant, which is like, an award-winning 5-star restaurant, just amazing food. You eat there, and then it's kind of like he talks about some of the phenomena that goes on, on the ship. And then a lot of those people that do the Dining with the Spirits will also go on his Paranormal Ship Walk, which occurs after. So, but yeah, I think a lot of these energies enjoy people. It's people from like all over the world, different ages, different cultures, people from different areas. So, yeah, I think that it does provide pleasure. Now, I am going to mention this because, I'm not going to mention the name of the show, but one of the popular ghost shows made the Queen Mary out to be a, quote, ship with evil forces.
Television, paranormal television would never do that.
Paranormal television, right?
Really?
Okay, so, I watched this episode. Actually, I watched only 5 minutes of it and then ended up throwing my TV remote across the room because I was so appalled at what I was seeing, so disrespectful to the ship and her legacy. But, paratainment. But anyways, I do want to say that, in my opinion, and this is after many years of spending countless hours on the ship, I don't think that there's anything malevolent on that ship. Yes, people died. Yes, people died in tragic ways. Maybe their energy is there, stuck, sadly. And, it makes me sad to think that. And maybe they're not happy with their condition, but that does not equate to malevolent or evil. Completely different. So I do not feel that there's anything like very evil or malevolent on the Queen Mary at all. She sometimes has heavy energy from her history, of course, like I said, but so I like to say that on all these radio shows that I go on, just because, it's just something that I strongly feel. So for anyone that, is maybe afraid to go on the Queen Mary out of fear of, oh my gosh, she might have negative energy, it's just don't be. She has such a beautiful spiritual aura with so much history to share, and, she's a ship for the people. And so that's something just to take home. So.
Very understandable, and thank you for sharing that. Couple questions from our audience here. Andrew at #SpacedOutRadio on Twitter is asking, have you ever had visitors often have to leave because they were just too scared? I've heard of stories. I think I shared one in Spirited Queen Mary where this guy, I guess, I think if I have it right, he went out to get something to eat and came back and found things like missing or changed in his room, and he just went to the front desk. I think he tried to get a new room, but he couldn't, and he just left. There have been people that have left in the middle of the night because they've had an experience, or someone whispered in their ear, or they felt someone lay down next to them, or they, were asleep and awoke to find, a former captain standing near their bed. Yeah, people have, but it's not anything to be afraid of. I've had experiences where I was actually in M001 as one of my favorite cabins, very active for some reason. It's a deluxe stateroom on the starboard side of M deck, kind of right near where the suites start. And I got up to go to the bathroom, if I remember, and then I laid back in bed. And when I laid back in bed, I felt someone spit down on the bed, and I was just like, all right, and I said, I'm trying to sleep, I'm going to go back to sleep, but, you're welcome to be in here. And it just, it didn't really scare me or anything. But I know, like, for people, if you're kind of in that, like, hypnagogic kind of, state of sleep where you're kind of, I guess, prevalent, or not prevalent, but you're more vulnerable to, like, sleep paralysis, maybe that could be scary in that sense. But, and that, what that leads me, a lot of people when they're on board the Queen Mary, I've interviewed people and I've talked to people that have actually dreamt about
former crew and passengers on the Queen Mary when they're staying on board. So I'm thinking, maybe some of these intelligent spirits, use the time when someone's sleeping to communicate with them. So lots of different things, lots of interesting stuff goes on there. It's cool.
Let's get to Ron's question in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Have you ever noticed the paranormal activity fluctuating during lunar cycles, solar storms, or anything of the sorts?
Yes, I mean, we found this not just at the Queen Mary, but with other, locations. Mercury retrograde's a big one. Thunderstorm activity, with the ionic energy in the atmosphere. But yeah, full moons. When we've done our tours at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, we've had a couple full moons where our tours have actually landed on a full moon night, and we've had some incredible experiences. So I'm a believer in that lunar and solar cycles and some of these geomagnetic storms and whatnot. I think they completely influence spiritual energy, absolutely. But and then the Queen Mary too, I think that I see a pattern when there's a lot of, if it's near a certain anniversary, she'll tend to get a little bit more active. Or if it's, there's a big event going on, like Dark Harbor, the annual Halloween event, or the Christmas wintertime annual chill event, or if they have like a lot of weddings on board or things like that, I see that the ship's spiritual energy, strengthens a little bit. I've even seen it really strong when it's basically practically empty and there's not a lot of events going on. So, but yeah, it does. It kind of just waxes and wanes. It really does. But there's always this consistent level of like supernatural energy on board. So it's, and I hate to use the word haunted because I always think that there's like a negative connotation to that word, but in my opinion, for a place to be classified as being haunted, there has to be some sort of historical connection to that location. The earthbound energies or the spirits there have to have some sort of historical tie to that location, and that is the case with the Queen Mary. So therefore, I would say yes, she's absolutely haunted.
Yes, she's
but
haunted.
Just has such fascinating energy on board, that's for sure.
I would love to learn about the story of the Lady in White.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I was totally forgetting to talk about her. There might be more than one Lady in White, but one of the common claims is that there's a piano that is located on A deck on the starboard side of the hotel lobby check-in where the former bar is located. It's kind of a little nook, and I like to sometimes take my laptop there and do some writing there. But anyways, people think that this lady is attached to that piano because whenever the piano is played, she is seen sometimes dancing around it. She's been seen in the Windsor room, which is a little ballroom adjacent to the first class dining room down on our deck. Another theory is that she could possibly have been a nurse on board the ship, as she's one cleaning room crew member was cleaning, I think it was B444, which is this, I believe, on the starboard side of B deck, and she was cleaning this room and then saw this lady adorned in a white gown walk from this room down aft toward where the isolation ward area would be. So that's where the theory of her possibly being a nurse comes from. Now, I saw her once now I'm not sure if it's the same. Like I said, there might be more than one Lady in White, but I did see a woman adorned in a very long, white, beautiful gown as I was walking down the first class steps from Promenade to M deck. And it was like I saw her out of my peripheral left vision, but when I looked up, I saw her before she faded. And it looked like a long, beautiful evening gown. Let's see, she's trying to think. So B deck, she's been seen in different areas of the liner, often dancing by herself sometimes. There was an odd picture that was captured on the port side of B deck toward the aft side, but the picture was looking forward, and it looked to capture a woman that had long black hair, and then there was like she was adorned in this white gown, and it looked that she was kind of, her form was a little altered. So a lot of these apparitional photos, if they look humanoid, if they look kind of weird, like missing arms or limbs, that's more of a telltale sign that it's actually an authentic photo. But she did look to have like this long gown in the photo with long brown hair. So, but yeah, she's pretty elusive. We don't know if she's like a former passenger or, like I said, a nurse. It's hard to say, but she's spotted frequently.
Take us to the kitchen. Take us to the kitchen, where one of the ship's chefs was brutally murdered by soldiers, and is said to still be cooking meals.
You know, to my knowledge, I'm not sure if that's ever been verified as fact. Back during World War II, there were fights that broke out among, the different soldiers. Like the Australians, I think, were a little bit known to be a little bit more gruff. And then the harsh conditions, the imminent threat of U-boat attacks, and the, stench of, vomit from seasickness and cigarette smoke, and homesickness, and just the hot, humid climates. I mean, it caused men to go crazy in many respects. But there is a chef that loved his job so much on the Queen Mary. He went by Leonard Lobster Horsborough, and he passed away and was, he had a funeral on board. I believe his body was given to the sea, if I remember correctly, and he is known to, I believe, to still be there and carry out his duties. He just loved working on the Queen Mary, so perhaps it's him. I don't know, but the kitchen space, now the kitchens on the Queen Mary, of course, the kitchens nowadays are still in the same space as the previous kitchens, but of course the equipment's changed. But I have heard encounters from crew members that work in the kitchens where they've seen apparitions and things like that. So I've never investigated the kitchens. I mean, obviously, I think that wouldn't be allowed for various reasons, but it would be interesting because I'm sure it would, be quite active.
Tell us about this list, and I'm looking at a photo here. That there is an actual list of every passenger who died on board the Queen Mary. How many are on this list?
I'm not sure of the exact number. I do list in the back of my books in the appendices section the list and by the year they died, former crew and passengers that died on board the Queen Mary. The wide belief, though, is that because, especially during World War II, when documentation may not have been as accurate as possible, a lot of people feel that more people did die on the ship that weren't documented. But this is and they have plaques in the isolation ward on the Queen Mary. If you go in there, you will see blue plaques that list the names of the passengers or crew that died and the year in which they died. But to my knowledge, it's a partial list, and I'm sure that there's many more. So, yeah. But in for a lot of these people, not only, some, especially before the ship received stabilizers in the late 50s, she pitched and rolled. And so seasickness was very prevalent. There was even a time when at forward end of B deck, a lot of people that stayed in those cabins or in that area of B deck and even A deck, the forward areas, would experience a lot of the pitching and rolling. And so there was one instance where there were these people huddled on the staircase, and one of the captains came down, and they were like, oh my gosh, when are we going to be taken to the lifeboats, because they thought the ship was sinking. So of course they were sent to the doctor, and they were tranquilized a little bit to help with their anxiety. But I just lost my train of thought. I don't know why that happened. I guess I'm tired, but I just lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
You were talking about the Queen Mary, remember? The ship that you investigate?
Yeah, no, with the specific. Oh my God, I hate when that happens. I completely just lost. Okay.
Well, we were talking about. The original question was about the list of people who had died.
Oh, that's
on the
right.
ship.
Okay. Yeah. That's. I'm sorry. Gosh, I don't know why that happened. That's really odd.
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
I know. I'm like, woo, 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 woo. But anyways, yeah. So, talking about the forward areas of the cabins and people, being scared and getting anxious from the pitching and rolling. But I mean, the list. A lot of people, if you read the list, a lot of them passed away from like coronary issues, pulmonary issues, injuries to the head, things like that. I think there were even a few that fell overboard as well. But I do think I really do think it's a partial list. I think especially during World War II when not all the deaths were documented. I mean, there were so many soldiers down that were kept down in the lower decks when the ship would go through very hot, humid climates, and they had no air conditioning. So not only did fights break out among these men, but they, suffered from like heat stroke and heat prostration and things like that. So it was hard. It was very, very hard times on the ship during World War II. That's so weird. I can't believe I lost my train of thought for a second. That's so weird.
It happens. It happens.
I completely went blank.
Let me ask you this. For 25 years, room B340 was stripped clean and no one was allowed to sleep in it. What makes that room so eerily haunted?
All right, so do you want the truth about the room?
Give it to us, because...
Nothing but the truth?
Nothing but the truth.
Okay, so pretty much the rumors that are online and what you've heard about a man being found hung inside and the maids being afraid to go in the room to clean it, all of that is false. When Disney operated and managed the ship, they used room B340 as a ploy to try to, spruce up its paranormal phenomena. And so they created scenarios to try to almost, scare people and, like I said, to almost sensationalize its hauntings. So pretty much all the rumors about murders taking place in there, maids being afraid to go in there, all of that's false. At the time that the maids were said to go in and clean, I mean, the room wasn't even in operation in that time, and during that time. So it's a room just like any other room on the Queen Mary. It was used as an office at one point. I've investigated it just like I have other areas. I've captured EVPs and things like that. There was a case where one of its portholes was, when people went in the room, the porthole was found closed, and then a few minutes later, the porthole opened. Now, these portholes are super, super heavy. There's no way that they could open or close by themselves. So there's odd, experiences in there, but it's the same as any other area of the ship. So, but a lot of the rumors about it, B340, a lot of the myths, a lot of the fables are just that, created by Disney. So,
not Disney. They wouldn't do that.
Not Disney. Sorry. Well,
I do.
I know. I didn't burst your bubble.
I do have to tell you this story about the museum that I'm at. I was talking to the lady today because I went down there, and usually before every ghost hunt I'll go remind Willie that we have a tour coming through, and so I meet up with Sheila, who lives on the property, and she takes care of the entire museum. And she says to me, she goes, "Dave, I got the strangest story to tell you." And I said, "Okay." She's always been a little bit skeptic about what's going on, but she knows that the previous caretaker, Ken, who passed away, that he had believed there was ghosts there, and she's starting to open up. So anyway, she says, when we were evacuated from the fire, I took everything with me that I could and left, and everything was locked up. And when I got back home, all of a sudden, in between the couch cushions, my chair, on the table, Cheerios were everywhere.
My goodness.
There was a Cheerio or two on the stairs going upstairs, and in her shoes that she had left behind were filled.
My goodness.
They were filled with Cheerios as well.
Now that's nuts, and I assume she took the food with her, so there would have been no food in there.
She doesn't eat Cheerios.
My goodness.
She said the only time she'll ever have a box of Cheerios in the place is when her granddaughters come over, because they like Cheerios. But there is a little girl in the house named Emily.
Oh.
And Emily doesn't see the wall between the museum side of the house and Sheila's side of the house. We've seen this many a time. Emily is a sweetheart of a ghost. I have actually,
just like Jackie.
I have actually had Emily hold my hand and walk me to the stairs, and I've actually had her do that to my wife as well. Now
my goodness.
The funny part about Emily is when my dad came for his first ghost hunt, and this is Mr. Five Senses guy, I gave him my K2 meter. Okay. And all of a sudden he's standing upstairs at the museum side, and he says to me, "Hey son." I said, "Yeah." And the K2 meter is going from orange to red. Like it's not moving back to green. It's orange to red. And he's like, "What does this mean?" And I said, "Well, where's your cell phone?" He goes, "It's off in my pocket." I said, "Well, say hello to Emily." I said, "Say hello to Emily."
Oh.
And he's like, "What? Who's Emily?" And I said, "That's the ghost, Dad. I mean, they come up, they talk, and they can get near this K2 meter, and their energy is said to pick them up." And I said, So all of a sudden I said, "Emily, can you stop it?" And it went dead. Well, now my dad is shaking because there's no lights going on. I said, "Emily, do you like hanging out with my dad?" Light goes to red.
That's so freaking cool.
So,
oh my goodness.
Watching my dad hold this K2 meter while I hate to say this, and it's going to be so rude when I say this, but almost having a seizure with my K2. He's shaking so much over this experience. He's now a believer, and he wants to come to every one. Unfortunately, due to the forest fires up here and the highway being closed up here, he's not going to make it tomorrow. But it's one of those things where he now brags to all his friends, and they're like, "Oh, that's crap. That crap doesn't exist." My dad's like, "Come up with me. With me." And
That's so interesting. Spirits have a way of doing that with people that are more on the skeptic side. Now, is Emily more modern, or is she? Do you know when she died, or?
We haven't been able to find out fully who she is. Just over years, people investigating, and they've heard the name. I believe that there was an Emily at one point who lived in the old, what we call the Monocle house, because the Monocle family owned it.
So that might be...
Yes.
Because I was going to say, well, maybe she's, related to the land, but not necessarily the building. But if there was an Emily that lived there, that would make sense.
Absolutely. So we're going to see, usually she is pretty active. She is very, very active during the tour. And, hopefully that she comes out to play. But the Cheerios were very interesting because Sheila was like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" And I'm like, "Well, just say hello. She's not a bad kid. She's not bad."
That's very interesting. And I'm assuming no animals got in there or anything like that.
No.
But you would bring in Cheerios.
You would see crumbs. Okay, if it was mice or rats, they'd have been they would have been scattered all over the place. The Cheerios box that I'm assuming was in the house had no holes in it. Okay,
that's just odd to me.
But the Cheerios were literally stuffed. There wasn't any evidence of Cheerios until how kids will always go check behind the couch cushions, or they'll stick their hands in between the couch cushions while watching TV.
I used to do that when
exactly,
I was little.
and that's what was happening. Is all of a sudden the granddaughter's pulling out handfuls of Cheerios from in between the couch cushion, and even Sheila reached down into her cushions, and Cheerios there as well, and there was Cheerios on the table, and then going up the stairs, and then sitting in her shoes.
Oh my gosh, it's about time to set up some DVR cameras in there.
Oh, this place, I've had friends of mine who are investigators who have investigated all over British Columbia. And they will tell you that this museum, for as small as it is, and there's only a number of buildings on there, but they have said it is one of the most haunted and active areas in our province, because this museum was built right along the Gold Rush Trail.
Oh, okay.
So there was a lot of murder, a lot of thievery, a lot of dark antics around here, prostitution, alcoholism, everything. You know what I'm saying? Like the hills are, if the hills around here could talk, or at least give up their hidden gold that is surrounded, there'd be a lot of rich people around here right now.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well,
yes.
Maybe, hopefully one day when I'm there, I'd love to take the tour. It sounds
absolutely.
Like a fabulous place.
We have one building. Here's a funny story, and I'm not trying. I realize we're supposed to be talking about the Queen Mary, but I get all excited when it's ghost hunting time.
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So I do apologize. I'm not trying to take over.
No need at all.
But we just recently brought in this new building that was like I forget what we call it. It was I think it's called a trapper's hut or something like that, but it's where the game warden used to stay, an old cabin. So what's funny about this building is we went in there on Canada Day. I had never been inside, but two members of my team previous to Canada Day, they went up to the building. They were feeling energy, and one of the ladies, Carrie, actually put her hand up on the window, and she felt a hand tap hers through the window.
Oh,
so
interesting. But she didn't see it, though. She just felt it.
Right.
Wow.
Like she felt the window move back against her hand. And she said that happened a couple of times. So another member of my team and I, we go into the building on Canada Day because they have all the buildings unlocked. And we stand in there. We got my K2 meter going. And this building is tiny, okay? Like it's maybe 10 feet by 8 feet in circumference.
Oh, yeah, that's not
very,
at all. Wow.
very tiny. So we're in there. And I got my K2 meter going, and we're talking to the guy in there, and he is totally active. But the funny part about it was, every time someone came in behind us to look in the building, he went silent. And then when they left,
that's fascinating.
When they left, he was back chatting with us. And then someone else would come in, and he would go silent for a minute or two. Then when they would leave, he would start chatting with us again. It was the funniest thing. Like, he was just like, okay, I'll chat with you guys because you guys kind of know what's going on. But for the rest of the crew, no. Well,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like it's like he because he knows you and has a rapport, he's comfortable. But then with new people, it's like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
We see that a lot at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, too. Like, they'll come forward to me and Allie a lot. But, with new people, maybe not quite as much.
Do you notice, or have you had any contact on this Queen Mary with spirits that have a little bit of attitude like that?
Yeah, actually, I have. William Eric Stark is known to be kind of like more gruff and, not mean by any means, but just kind of like he wants his own space. And, we've had, there have been experiences where people have had like, jokes or tricks played on them and things like that. So there's just with the Queen Mary, there's just such a different variety of like personalities. Some are more quiet, some are more like talkative, some are more silly, some are more serious. It's just funny. When you think about it, it's crazy.
Does it ever get old?
No. See, that's, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, Nicole, are you seriously, like, what's wrong with you? It never gets old for me, ever. I can go on the same location several times, and, even if there isn't, like, evidence to like I said, to capture, or even if there isn't a personal experience, it's just the experience of going and being in that area and seeing the ship and stuff. And this goes for, other locations that we've investigated more than once. It's always, and every time it's so different. I never get bored with it. I don't mind sitting there, in the middle of the night talking to thin air, doing vigil type work. I love it. I love reviewing evidence. I find that whole process to be, very fascinating. Like, no, it never gets old. Does it for you?
I feel bad sometimes because I only have really I've never been a paranormal investigator. I don't consider myself.
Make a good one.
Yeah, I'll beg to differ.
I think you'd be really good.
I'll beg to differ.
Okay, well,
I like. You know what? You know what? I like doing my own thing. Okay, I don't want to be a part of a team. I don't want to, be a part of, even though I have people who help me out. I'm not in it for any glory or anything. I'm there to find out what's going on, because the ultimate question that me personally would like to understand is my biggest fear in life, besides sharks and gnomes, is death. I am scared to death of death, pun intended. And
I think like a lot of us are, though. I think that's normal to an extent. Absolutely.
So my whole thing is, I really want one day to sit with a spirit, like get lack of a better term, attached to a spirit, where you're actually having a conversation to learn about the other side. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
I'd love to have that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one day I hope at my museum that I'm able to do that, because it is something that is... I'm a firm believer in the paranormal, going back to what we talked to about in hour number 1. I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of smart people in this field, Nicole, but we are going in so many different directions that we're making ourselves look like fools instead of solving one of life's greatest mysteries: is there life after death? And if we
I agree. Absolutely.
And if we put our energy into that, we could solve so many of these paranormal issues that are out there, but we don't. And I don't think it'll ever happen.
Yeah. So, well, I think a lot of the problem too is people, they're not necessarily, they don't have that innate passion like you and I do. Like when I do this work out of love and passion, I'm not in it for glory. I'm not in it for money. I'm not in it for anything other than my passion. And see, I think if the field was comprised of, more people with that, I think we'd be, edging closer to trying to discover more about what's out there.
Fully agree. So I like to do my own thing. I have a number of people who I talk to, who I get information from. I rely very heavily on a very small amount of people if I have any questions, because I like to keep my circuit tight. And
Me too.
And they're people whom I can trust with my answers or my questions. And, one of the big things that I am learning very quickly is the more you present yourself to the spirit, the more they're going to accept you. And once they accept you, I might be able to get that answer that I need personally.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's so, once there's that rapport that's built, the sky's the limit.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. So we're going to see where this goes, and we're going to see how things react tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And hopefully we have, I know we have a bunch of new people coming tomorrow night. Usually we try and cap the tour around 20, but because we missed last month and there isn't many events going on up here right now due to the forest fires, we're probably just going to say screw that limit and just take as many people who want to come. I think that's only fair.
Well, I wish I could go. Oh, my God. I'll be thinking about you guys, that's for sure.
Well, I thank you. And I got to tell you, this was a very fast 3 hours.
Right? I know. It's like, my goodness. Like, how did it go by that fast?
Could you do us a favor? Could you remind people about your website and where they can find your book?
Oh, absolutely. My Queen Mary website is spiritedqueenmary.com. So that's the title of one of my books about the ship. I came out with Spirited Queen Mary, Her Haunted Legend, and I kind of consider that a sister book to The Haunted Queen of the Seas. It delves a little bit more into the spiritual story about the Queen Mary, whereas The Haunted Queen of the Seas is more of an overview of its history and an overview of its paranormal. So those books are actually sold on board the Queen Mary and her gift stores, and of course you can get them on Kindle as well and on Amazon, I believe Amazon, and then Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. My team's website is San Diego Paranormal research.com. And then I have my author website, which is author NicoleStrickland.com. And then, of course, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, like us all. So, if you have any questions or, want to chat more, I'm always available. That's for sure. This has been so exciting.
Thank you, Nicole.
I've really, really, really enjoyed being on your show. Thank you so much.
You hold on for about 90 seconds. I'm going to wrap this thing up if you don't mind.
You got it.
Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking us in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night and Sunday, Dave Cruz with Spaced Out Saturdays, Elizabeth Anglin's Spaced Out Sundays Cosmic Passport. Both shows get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, and can be heard at spacedoutradio.com. I want to thank my team, Everett Thiemer, Eric Markham from The Encounter Online, Kim Gandy, Director of Business Management, Bob Davis, our great announcing voice, Catherine James, Social Media, and Jolene Lammers, Tim Doyle, who put together our beautiful website. That is our team. And I want to thank each and every one of you in the chat rooms on Twitter for hanging out with us this week. Another week done. We're back on Monday when Leslie Mitchell-Clark will talk hypnotherapy and aliens with me. Have a great weekend, everybody. Keep spreading the word, because together we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home.